Hello, welcome to this week's Caregiver Question of the Week. Today we're going to be talking about a really important question that came up during a conversation that I was having this week, and I wanted to address it because it can really be a powerful point of contention in situations when there are multiple caregivers for someone who has dementia. And it's something that can really have a profound impact on the experience and quality of life of both the person who has dementia and, frankly, the person who is, or people who are caring for them as well. So I wanted to address this question in Caregiver Question of the Week this week. And the question is really, when someone has dementia, do you correct them? Do you ask them to remember? Okay, so we'll get to that in a second, but first, my name is Amelia. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm also the very proud owner and founder of Higher Standards Caregiver Training, as well as the very proud co-founder of WCN University, that's Whole Care Network University, which is a great resource site for family caregivers. Okay, oh, real fast first. Also, this is for educational purposes only. If anything that I say reminds you of someone or a situation where you think you need to see a licensed healthcare provider, then please do so. This is not a substitute for a therapeutic relationship or therapeutic advice. It's not a substitute for health or medical advice. Okay, now let's talk about this question. So the very short answer to should you correct someone who has dementia, should you ask people who have dementia to remember things, the very short answer is no. But that's, of course, not a sufficient answer. Let's really talk about why this is. And we're going to talk about why this is on a couple of levels. But I want to start out by giving a couple of really concrete examples that actually don't have anything necessarily to do with dementia, but I think help us to understand why the answer is no, we shouldn't correct people who have dementia. We shouldn't ask them necessarily to remember things that they can't remember. Because when someone has dementia, that can be, dementia is sort of it's a more abstract diagnosis. We can't necessarily see it happening. We don't always understand really what the person who has dementia is going through. I don't know that there is really a way to understand that unless we're in that moment ourselves, right? So let's start with a couple of very concrete examples that I think can get to the bottom of one of the reasons, at least, why we don't want to correct people who have dementia, who might, be getting an answer wrong or might think that the situation is different than it is. Okay, so first, let's say that you have lost your car keys. Like, they are lost. We've all been there. They're lost. You've looked everywhere. You can't find them. You're sort of like sitting in the living room, not knowing what to do. And every 2 minutes or so, someone walks in and they say, "Do you know where your car keys are?" No, you don't know where your car keys are. And after a couple of times, after a handful of times on that, you're probably gonna get pretty frustrated because it's not necessarily helping the situation. It doesn't change the fact that you don't know where your cars are. Where your cars? Hopefully you know where your car is. Where your car keys are. It's not changing the situation. It is making you more frustrated. Second quick example. Let's say you know someone who recently has lost their eyesight. They're completely blind. You probably wouldn't go up to that person and say, "Hey, can you see this?" Right? Because one, that they can't, and that might be a frustrating question to ask them. And two, that you asking them to see is not going to fix the fact that they can't. And so we need to think about dementia and the way that we're interacting with someone who has dementia in a similar way. When someone doesn't have the correct orientation to where they are or what time it is or even what year it is or what the situation is, when someone doesn't remember a fact, they're not going to remember simply by us either asking them to remember or by us correcting them over and over again. And instead, what that can do is that can lead to really deep and real feelings of frustration, of anger, of agitation, and frankly even of shame, right? People with dementia are still people. They are going to recognize that you're asking them to do something that they're not able to do, and they may also feel like, well, if someone is asking me to do this, maybe I'm supposed to be able to do that, and they can feel shame from that too. And I don't think, as people caring for folks, for someone that you love who has dementia, I don't think that that's the experience anyone wants the person that they're caring for to have, right? Not at all. Not at all. That's not the intention behind asking someone to remember, or to reorienting them to the current situation or correcting them. That's not the goal. But unfortunately, it can be the outcome. So what can we do instead? Well, there are a couple of things that we can do. One of these answers is pretty short and to the point. The other one's a little bit more complicated. One thing that we can do, and this is the short answer, is just go with it. If you take nothing else away from this caregiver question of the week, just go with it. Sometimes that can be easier to say than it is to do, of course, but the fact is, again, we're not going to fix the dementia by correcting someone or by asking them to remember. We're only going to increase frustration. The goal of care is to have the best quality of life possible, right? So how do we do that? Well, as long as the situation is friendly, as long as it's safe, we go with it. We stay with them where they are in that moment in time. And sometimes that can actually be a really beautiful thing, to just be in whatever moment someone is in with them and really truly be present with them. And in some ways, even though dementia is it's so hard. It's just so hard. I won't sit here and pretend like it's not hard, but we can find moments of beauty, and we can find these moments of beauty when we can just be present and share whatever moment someone is in with them. So that's the number one takeaway. Just go with it. Be flexible. Stay with them in that moment. The other kind of bit that I want to bring up, and this is just something to think about, is we also have to understand why we want to keep asking people to remember, why we want to keep orienting them to what the correct situation is. And a lot of times that comes from our own anxiety, that comes from our own grief, that comes from our own need and desire to want to fix things, to want to control things. And this is a situation where we just don't have that control. So it's an opportunity also to practice having compassion for ourselves, having compassion for the person that we're caring for, and letting go of that control. And like I said, I won't pretend like any of this is necessarily easy. Some things are easy to say, and it's easy to say something, and in practice it can be a lot harder to do. But when we allow that to happen, when we relinquish that control, when we stay in the moment with the person that we're caring for, there really are opportunities for tremendous connection and tremendous beauty. Okay, so that's this week's Caregiver Question of the Week. I know it was a little bit longer than normal. I hope you hung in there with me till the end. If you have a question, please reach out, ask it. You can submit it totally anonymously using the link to submit your Caregiver Question of the Week. You don't have to share your name. You don't have to share your number, your email, no contact information at all. You can literally just submit your question. Okay. That's it. I will see you next week for next week's Caregiver Question of the Week. Until then, please stay healthy, stay well, and most of all, take care. Bye.